I said. I don't care what your house looks like. And anyway, we agreed not to worry about that stuff, didn't we? To just be friends? Freaks together, right? I smiled. Jasper wasn't smiling. She only stood, staring at me, for what felt like a long minute. I stared right back at her. I wasn't going to give up this time. Leah, please. Her voice sounded strained, or maybe tired. I shook my head. I stood firm. Nope. It didn't feel like me at all, this stubbornness. It wasn't a thing I'd ever done, to insist on anything this way. But I wasn't feeling quite like myself. I was a different me suddenly, blunt, honest. I wanted to know Jasper, more than I could remember wanting anything. It felt like I needed to know Jasper. I didn't like the feeling that she could drift away from me again, that she could disappear. I thought about her leaving, and how I would then just fall back into my silent house and go back to sleep, with the shadows and the silences. And I knew I didn't want that to happen. I needed that not to happen. So I stared at her, silent, waiting. She looked down at her feet, and their flip-flops, so I looked at her feet too. They were a mess. Her toes were filthy, grubby from the bus and the streets. Orange nail polish chipped and grown out. They were sad toes. We could paint our nails, I offered. At your house. I could paint yours, and you could paint mine. It'll be fun. You don't understand, said Jasper, turning away from me, walking away from me. You really don't. I don't know why you're doing this. It will change everything. But she was wrong. Nothing could change me wanting to be her friend, and I was tired of waiting. Something inside me needed to know more, so I followed her, even though I could tell she was upset. I shifted the strap of the grocery bag higher onto my shoulder and winced as it cut into the skin under my t-shirt. Then silently, I followed her along Woodland for a few blocks, and I was surprised when she turned onto the rocky gravel of Mercer, back toward the farm where we'd first met. Mercer? But I know everyone who lives on this street, I said, running to catch up to her. And I thought you said you lived farther away. Jasper didn't answer me. She just kept walking, so I followed along silently, kicking gravel. I didn't say anything when we entered the farm. I didn't say anything when Jasper headed down toward the creek and straight into the kudzu jungle, through the scratchy green tendrils that raked at my arms and legs. I was silent as I watched her stomp along the creek. Then she came to a wall of vines and stopped. She lifted aside a sort of curtain, a veil of vines, to reveal a gap in the green. Through that gap, Jasper crawled, and I followed as she scrambled up an embankment overhanging the creek. I had no idea where we were going, but I pushed my own way through and clawed at the red clay and tree roots, trying to keep up, the heavy bag dragging at my shoulder. A moment later, I burst through all that green, through the kudzu and ivy and honeysuckle, and found Jasper standing in front of a tiny house I'd never seen before, a house I'd never noticed. It was tucked away back in the trees at the edge of the farm, buried in all the vines, pines, and shrubs. I could barely make out the weather-tanned color of the clapboards, so overgrown it was in green. Situated like that, the house was blocked from view on all sides, hidden and buried in overgrowth. It was a cottage, really, a tiny, miniature house, obviously abandoned and neglected, but it had gingerbread trim and broken stained glass set into the windows. I could tell it had been beautiful once, like something from a fairy tale, but vacated long ago by the elves or hobbits or fauns who had once lived there. A bright blue